You don't work. You don't bring in any money. Get out of this house immediately. Despite having served this family for so many years, my mother-in-law believes only my sister-in-law's words and not a single word of mine. I can't use my energy to keep trying for these people anymore. Okay, I'm leaving. Don't regret it later. Regret? We'll never do that. Really, you've been an unlovable daughter-in-law to the end. So little much? They incited me until the very end. I packed only my essentials in my bag and stormed out of the house. My name is Sarah. I turned 33 years old. I have no children, and I currently live with my in-laws, taking care of my father-in-law. I married Jacob 8 years ago, but he passed away because of an unforeseen accident 5 years ago. The shock of losing her son early left my mother-in-law in a hollow state for a while. To support my mother-in-law and my father-in-law, who needs care, I continue to live with my in-laws even after my husband's death. I don't mind taking care of my father-in-law at all, as he has done a lot for me. I'm even glad I can return the favor this way. The problem, however, is my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. First, about my mother-in-law. She never liked me from the beginning and has been giving me a hard time since my husband was alive. When we were struggling to have children, she made a sarcastic remark. Why did you marry a barren woman? You are useless. Loud on me to hear, she bullied me in many ways. Each time, my husband and father-in-law would scold her, but she never learned her lesson, and the sarcasm and harassment continue to this day. And the one who encourages this is my sister-in-law, Lillian. She lives nearby, but doesn't help with the care at all. Once, I asked my mother-in-law to ask Lillian to help, but she said, Don't make Lillian do such things. You can do it. I let out a deep sigh at that moment. Lillian must have been spoiled like this all along. She is very selfish and self-centered, leaving her child here suddenly to go out and play, taking the food I made without permission. She does whatever she wants. And my mother-in-law praises her, saying, She's just like me, a thrifty and wise girl. I once tried to caution Lillian, but was scolded by both my mother-in-law and Lillian, saying, You couldn't even have a child, or useless freeloader. Thus, I was nagged and blamed by my mother-in-law and my two sisters-in-law. I realized that there was no point in arguing with these two, so I decided not to say anything. They went out and had fun without doing any caregiving or chores and treating me like a servant. They must really be two peas in a pod in the worst possible way. The reason I don't leave this house is partly because I have memories with my husband, but above all, I can't leave my father-in-law alone. If I left him to these people, something terrible would surely happen. I just can't do something as ungrateful as repaying kindness with ingratitude. That's why I'm still living with them like this. One day, in the midst of these days, my sister-in-law came to visit the house. I thought she came to drop off her child again, but she didn't seem to have her child with her today. She had a travel bag on her shoulder, so I thought she might be going on a trip. She said, I have to talk about something. Call my mom. So I decided to take her to the living room now. I called my mother-in-law and we sat down at the table in the living room. She said, I'm gonna live here. She should be living in a condo with her husband both. When I asked her why, she started to explain in a tearful voice. She said she had been suffering from domestic violence from her husband and had run away. She wanted to bring her child with her, but her husband wouldn't allow it, so she left the house alone. I've met my sister-in-law's husband a few times, and he seemed like a very kind person. Had to be violent. Rather, it was my sister-in-law who was often shouting at her husband unreasonably. I heard that sort of statement, but my mother-in-law, without any doubt, said, Lillian, forget about that horrible man. You can stay here as long as you want. While rubbing the crying back of my sister-in-law, she unilaterally granted permission for us to live together. Even if I give in and say it's okay to live together, but there are no extra rooms in this house right now. The rooms are filled with my father-in-law's care supplies and the clothes and bags my mother-in-law bought. Mother-in-law, I'm okay with living together, but there's no room left, you know? When I asked her, my sister-in-law, who should have been crying until a moment ago, loosened her perfectly dry eyes and said to me with a smirk, "Why don't you just leave?" I was taken aback, and my mother-in-law, like my sister-in-law, told me to leave. I see. That is better, Sarah. In this house, Lillian's gonna live. They were both saying things that were beyond my comprehension, leaving me speechless. As I was thinking about how to respond, my sister-in-law started saying something even more incomprehensible. For starters, my brother is already dead, and my sister-in-law has been a stranger for a long time, right? Why are you still living in this house? That's true. It seems like you barely work. We let you stay here out of sympathy for being Jacob's wife, but I want you to leave because you're just a freeloader. After my husband passed away, I was the one who took care of my grieving mother-in-law, and even now I'm the one nursing my father-in-law when he falls sick. It might sound strange for me to say this, but their comments are too harsh for a daughter-in-law who has done so much. I've been doing almost all the household chores and caregiving up until now. How can you say such harsh things? My anger gets the best of me, and inadvertently raise my voice. But she laughs off anger and says, "Huh? Since we let someone who doesn't work stay here, it's normal for you to do much, right? But you make such a big deal out of it." My sister-in-law has been a person who has nothing to do even after marrying my brother. She probably doesn't understand social norms. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law continued to slander me, as if denying everything I've done so far. That might be true. After all, Sarah only gives me $500 a month, you know? The $500 she mentioned is the allowance I give to my mother-in-law every month. I initially gave her $300, but she complained that it wasn't enough and accused me of economic violence, so I increased it to $500. I cover all the expenses for food, caregiving, and other living expenses. Therefore, my mother-in-law can use the substantial amount of $500 entirely for herself. But even then, she keeps complaining that it's not enough. I think $500 a month is not for you to live a lavish life. What are you spending it on, mother-in-law? $500 is not nearly enough. If you go shopping or eat out, it'll be gone in no time. Hey, Ma, isn't this what they call mother-in-law bullying? Oh no, my sister-in-law is scary. We should get rid of her as soon as possible. At my sister-in-law's words, my mother-in-law gives me a sharp look as if she's just realized something. I see. I was being bullied by my daughter-in-law. That's not true. I haven't done anything like that. Be quiet. You don't work, you don't give me money, and on top of that, you bully your mother-in-law. Get out of this house right now. Despite devoting so many years to serving my in-laws, my mother-in-law only believes my sister-in-law's words, not a single word of mine. I no longer have the energy to keep trying for these people. Understood. I will leave then. Don't regret it later. Regret? There's no way we do that. Really, you've been an unfeeling daughter-in-law till the end. So, Rosa, pathetic. Then continued to insult me till the end. I packed only what was necessary and fled from the house. From the day, I stayed at a business hotel near the nearest train station, and concerned about him, hurriedly proceeded with the preparations for moving and other procedures. One day, when most of the procedures were done, and all I had to do was wait for the movers to come, I had been bothered by the fact I left room in a mess when I fled house. I thought it would be embarrassing movers to see it instead, so I decided to go back her house. I expected they would dislike me entering the house. If I told them it was for preparations for moving, the two people who wanted me to leave house would probably agree. And also, I am curious about my father-in-law. I went to their house ASAP. I arrived at my parents-in-law's house, rang the chime, and my mother-in-law answered. "What are you doing here? After all the big talk you gave." When she saw my face, she made a clearly disgusted expression. But when I told her it was for moving preparations, she reluctantly let me into the house. The state of my in-laws' house, which I hadn't seen in a long time, was a mess. Trash was scattered everywhere, and neither laundry nor cleaning had been done at all. I'm sure no one has been taking care of the house since I left. Seeing this state of affairs, my anxiety reached its limit, and I quickly went to my father-in-law instead of my own room. When I entered the room, father-in-law was lying on the bed in fatigue. "Father?" When I called out, my father-in-law turned his face towards me in a panic. "Sarah!" When father saw my face, he had stared and bowed his head. "I'm really sorry. It's all because my incompetence that things have come to this." "It's not your fault, father. Please don't apologize. I'm the one. I'm sorry for leaving the house suddenly." My father-in-law began to sob, shaking his shoulders. I felt guilty about my father-in-law's state, but I didn't have much time, so I told him about the future. "I've decided to leave this house." "Ah, I see. I heard from those two." "So, would you like to live with me after I leave here? I can't leave you to those two, and without me, this house will." When I said that, he looked up at me with a surprised expression. His surprised face soon turned into a gentle one, and he slowly shook his head. "Thank you, but I can't. I don't want to be your burden, Sarah." "But it's not a burden." "I know. You're a very kind woman, Sarah. That's why I don't want to burden you anymore. I want you to be free, to be happy." At my father-in-law's kind words, tears welled up in my eyes. I'm sure my husband's kindness comes from his father. Warm and caring, tears welling up, my voice choking. "And I have a little idea of my own." My father-in-law told me about his idea. At first, I was surprised at his unexpected idea, but I was in full agreement. "Father, at least let me help you." When I said that, my father-in-law smiled happily and said, "Okay, thank you, Sarah," and nodded deeply. And then, on the day of the move, the moving company has arrived at my in-laws' house, swiftly packing and moving out the belongings. Thanks to the room cleaning I did the other day, I was saved from feeling embarrassed. As I was contemplating this, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law started speaking ill of me within earshot. "Ah, finally, the freeloading burden is leaving." "Indeed, we can finally live alone as a family." Saying goodbye to these two unpleasant people brings relief. With this in mind, their snide remarks don't bother me anymore. Ignoring the two, I quickly finished the move, said, "Well, I've done all I could for you," and swiftly headed to my new home. I heard a racket behind me, but I was so excited about my future life that I didn't pay attention to the noise. A few days later, I was heading back to my in-laws' house for the final touches. Upon arrival, I unfortunately ran into my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, who said, "Why is a stranger like you coming to this house? Did you come back because you don't have a home?" "But we won't let you in." Same as always." I sighed exasperatedly, and the two, noticing this, began to squawk even louder. Then a car pulled up in front of the house, and a man in a suit emerged. The mother-in-law and sister-in-law looked at the unfamiliar man curiously, and the man bowed to me. Sorry to have kept you waiting. Thank you for request for a sale appraisal. I look forward to working with you today. No, thank you. I look forward to working with you. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law, upon learning the man's identity, were stunned. I was about to ignore the two and enter the house, but they hastily interfered. Wait, how do you appraise someone else's house? What is the meaning of this? Yeah, who gave you permission to do this? The mother-in-law and sister-in-law were yelling with their faces turning red. They really don't know anything, I thought. Suppressing a laugh, I decided to tell the truth to the two who didn't know anything, even though they frowned and glared at me when I laughed. Who gave me permission? It was me. Huh? You really don't understand social norms, do you? You need the permission of the owner to sell a house. The owner of this house is Sarah, correct? At the words of the real estate agent, both of them looked dumbfounded. The real estate agent also looked at them with the same expression. This house was built by my father-in-law, but he could not work in the process of returning loan when he was sick. Then he cannot get back the rent. So my husband, who was still in his prime at that time, decided to refinance and inherited the house from my father-in-law. And the husband passed away. But my mother has no skills to pay back because she is houseworker. So I took over the job because I have money. Lillian, I understand. But did your mother-in-law not know either? But I thought my husband was the owner. How can your sick husband supposed to pay the loan? The mother-in-law's face suddenly turned pale. Seeing her finally realize this, I was speechless at her thoughtlessness. How on earth were you, a jobless person, able to pay the loan? I think I've told you this many times. I'm not jobless. I'm working as a children's book author. You were working? I thought you were just drawing on the computer. If I wasn't, I couldn't give you $500 every month, pay the loan, and provide living expenses. But, you really only see and listen to what you want to see and listen. You are hopeless. The father-in-law came out from the inside house on a wheelchair as they were arguing. Father! Seeing the father-in-law, the two of them rushed towards him, playing the victim and started thinking about what had just happened. Listen, Dad. Sarah is saying she'll sell this house. Yes, that's right. If she does that, where are we supposed to live? She's such a terrible daughter-in-law. Both of them were crying, appealing to the father-in-law that they were the ones being treated terribly. However, the father-in-law was looking at the two of them with a very cold expression. Yeah, I know. I also agree that it would be good if we did that. The mother-in-law and Helen were shocked at the truth told by the father-in-law. As the father-in-law said, he agreed with the decision to sell the house. I understand that if we sell the house, we won't have a place to live. But if we don't do this, those two won't reflect on their actions. In fact, they might not reflect even after this. But it's fine as long as they experience some hardship, deeply regret it, and that leads to reflection. That's what the father-in-law said the other day. Sarah is very good to us all time. She's young and lost Bob. She deserves to be free, but she's taking care of me. You don't even have a bit of gratitude towards her. But that is, Sarah took care of him because she liked it. Don't be absurd. I know because I'm the one who is taken care of by her. Taking care of Tom is difficult, and Sarah alone is doing it all this time. And yet, you dismiss it like that. Up until now, whenever my mother-in-law harassed me, he would get angry for me. But I've never seen him shout so loudly. Seeing my father-in-law trembling with anger, in contrast, My mother-in-law shuddered in fear. Amid such a freezing atmosphere, my sister-in-law suddenly began to wail loudly. But then, if this house is gone, what am I supposed to live in? My sister-in-law screams while frantically ruffling her hair. However, her face suddenly shows a startling realization, and she starts to speak to her father with a creepy grin and a fawning voice. That's right, Dad. You are receiving a pension now, right? We can rent a house and live off that, right, Dad? Let's live it together, okay? As if in hysterics, my sister-in-law grabs my father-in-law by the shoulders. At my sister-in-law's reckless behavior, my father-in-law responds with a look of dismay. Lillian, won't you stop your nonsense? You've been talking only about making life easier for yourself. Reflect a bit. But I thought you all were rich, and that's why I lived with you. If there's no money and no house, it's pointless. After yelling that, my sister-in-law pushes the wheelchair in which my father-in-law is seated, as if to send him flying. My father-in-law wobbles and almost falls over with the wheelchair, but at that moment, I ran to him and held him in the nick of time. At her outrageously heartless action, I yell at my sister-in-law, Lillian, what do you think you're doing? Huh? What's the big deal? I don't care about that old man if he's not useful to me. Seeing my sister-in-law, who shows no sign of remorse, I almost lunge at her. But that would only cause more trouble. I swallow down the rising surge of anger, gritting my teeth. I remain silent. Sarah proposes the expression as if she had a came brilliant idea. That's it, Sarah. Sail home to me. We're a family. It's okay if it's free. I moved you. At stepsister's outrageous proposal, I feel as if all the blood in my body is rushing to my head. This woman didn't listen to a single word my father-in-law said just now. I try to respond calmly, but my words come out sharply. What kind of nonsense are you talking about? Absolutely not. Lillian, maybe you should learn a little more about social common sense. No human decency. She must have been very insulted by my words. The younger sister-in-law exploded in a fit of rage, her face turning beet red. Damn it! All of them! They are useless! The old Jesus are of no help, won't listen to a word I say, and my lousy husband throws me out of having a little affair. She was likely referring to her in-laws when she mentioned old Jesus. I was surprised to hear her speak so disparagingly of them. In fact, here they show her. Despite generally report her, she seemed to turn a dime when things didn't go way. That certainly caught me off guard. But there was another remark that caught my attention. The mother-in-law must have been shocked to hear it as well. She was blinking in disbelief, looking at her younger sister-in-law with a face that shifted from red to blue. Who are you calling an old hag? And what's this about an affair? Lillian, weren't you beaten by your husband? Huh? That's a lie. Oh, that damn husband of mine took custody and everything for me. So I was planning to have fun with the money from you guys. I can't stand it anymore. Everyone present was taken aback by the younger sister-in-law's outburst. The mother-in-law, who had always seen her as a beloved daughter, must have been shocked to discover her true nature as a gold digger. She began screaming at the younger sister-in-law with incoherent words through her sobs, and the younger sister-in-law responded with a stream of vulgar insults. In the midst of this hellish scene, the father-in-law let out a deep sigh. He then bowed deeply in apology to me and the real estate agent. I am truly sorry. No, disputes within the family do happen occasionally. The real estate agent gave a bitter smile, trying to calm down the father-in-law, who continued to bow his head in apology. I'll handle those two somehow, so please go ahead with the valuation. Thank you, father-in-law. And so, with the father-in-law's cooperation, I was able to proceed with the valuation with the real estate agent. The location of the in-laws' house was quite good, so the valuation price was enough to repay the remaining loan balance. I sold the house and then went to the city hall to submit a divorce notice. I didn't disclose my new address and I changed my phone number. With this, I was able to sever ties with those people. Since then, I have been spending peaceful and quiet days without being bothered by anyone. After a few months since the issue was happened, I came to see my father-in-law for now. Father-in-law, how is your health? Are you having any difficulties? I'm doing well, thanks to the good facility you found for me, Sarah. The mother-in-law divorced my father-in-law at that time. Initially, I was fed up with her spending habits and careless attitude. She didn't take care of her husband and left it all to me. It seems that he ran out of patience. I'm going to divorce and move into some old folks' home. I want you, Sarah, to be free. When I explained to my father-in-law that he was leaving the house, that's what he said to me. So I did some research online and recommended this well-reviewed facility to my father-in-law, and I handled the admission procedures for him, who couldn't move freely. My father-in-law had worked seriously until he got sick, so he could live on his pension alone. However, my mother-in-law will probably have a tough life from now on. According to my father-in-law, my mother-in-law is currently living with my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law doesn't work seriously, and when she starts a part-time job, she quits and comes back immediately. With no other choice, my mother-in-law seems to be working hard at a nearby supermarket, struggling with her first cashier job in her life. When I was with them, the two of them got along so well and bullied me, but when they started living together, they fought every day. The argument was so intense that it even became a police matter. A friend of my father-in-law who came to visit told me about the current situation of those two. I really think it was a good decision that we divorced. I guess this is also thanks to you, Sarah. My father-in-law said with a smile. After that, I've been living alone in a rented apartment. I'm still working as a children's book author, and my fame is gradually rising. I used to love drawing, and I started making picture books for my future child, which is now my job. In the end, I didn't have a child, but the thank you and opinion letters I occasionally receive from the children who read my books are my treasures. Recently, I started living with a cat. I rescued it when I found it injured and collapsed on a walk in the park. Fortunately, my apartment allows pets, and most importantly, I remembered that my husband wanted to have a cat while he was alive, and I chose to live with this one. The slightly sleepy eyes seemed to resemble my husband. I named the cat Jake, borrowing a character from my husband's name, Jacob. Lately, I've been drawing picture books featuring Jake, and they are very popular, and there's even talk of making merchandise. Thanks to Jake, I don't feel lonely even though I'm alone now. I was oppressed by her and sister-in-law and lived a life without freedom, but thanks to his cooperation, I became free and a positive wind is blowing in my work. My life has just begun. I'll continue to work hard to take